by that logic,
Yeah.
like if I am working somewhere and I die and I've made sure in my will that my job goes to the person of my choosing, like is that
Legally binding? Legally binding. So we're getting low on coffee, but we're still here, and this is Melrose Madness, a little bonus episode for Season 1, Episode 2. I am here on mic with the just amazing Lisa.
Oh my gosh, and I'm here just loving life with the lovely Wayne.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm doing quite well, and we're very fortunate to have producers Chris and Ilana doing the thing for us, because
Yeah.
you know, let's do this part.
We can do the we can be goofy and wacky.
So for those who listened, what is Melrose Madness? We are really doing deep dives into the Melrose Place televisual universe.
Yes.
The MPTU.
I love the MPTU.
And if you listened to our Season 1, Episode 2 episode of Melrose Madness, you heard sort of a very kind of a constrained view to what's happening in that episode for those who might be watching along with us. For those who either are Melrose masters beyond even our level, or perhaps to the new initiate who, pardon me, to the new initiate who doesn't mind getting this kind of long view and things. We are going to get into the spoilers that occurred to us. Sort of just, you lose these moments if you don't do this kind of thing and pull them out. And one of the things, speaking of hinges, as I talk about the 90210 thing, in the episode we talked about Alison listing Marcy as the most aggressive woman she's ever met.
Oh girl, just wait. You wait.
Let's talk about Alison's trajectory and aggressive women.
Oh my God.
We're just waiting for Amanda to show up, of course. Heather Locklear.
So I love it. We're waiting for Amanda to show up. Although I would argue Brooke is way more aggressive than Amanda. Like Brooke literally, like she attaches herself to Alison like a parasite, gets herself to D&D, gloms onto Billy. She literally steals Alison's life. Producer
Ilana points out she sent Alison to Hong Kong.
Yes, she did. She sent her.
That's aggressive.
To get away from her dad. She literally was like, to get her away from Billy. That's right.
Yeah.
Can you please banish this woman to another country?
Just
she has a drinking problem, but I need her to get out of here.
Offer her a made-up job in Hong Kong. Yes, certainly. So you know, this early aggressive woman is, and you know, interestingly, I'm going to use that also to get to Marcy. Our one-off, our only thing that's happening in this episode, mostly. I kind of still the unlovable woman pops up.
Oh my God! The woman who wants a relationship is unlovable. You know, Sandy is the more subtle version of that.
Oh yeah.
But this is definitely where any woman who openly expresses her desire to be in a consensual relationship is doomed.
Yeah, you just kind of, you're better off being like, I don't have time for that now. My career, and then
yes.
like just someone will deem you extraordinary.
You do better. You know, your best bet is to be Alison and to just lie and say, my career is more important. But literally, the minute this woman gets a boyfriend,
yeah,
she cannot be bothered to go to work. I have never been able to use a relationship to just get out of work.
I once at a summer job, student job, once. Yeah, it's not fair. Real life. It is
IRL. It's very summer camp counselor. Listen, my boyfriend's on spring break from college. I know it's summer and he's on spring break, but the logic of this sentence in my head made more sense.
If we were to ever do, you know, when this becomes a podcasting empire and we're just like
Absolutely.
spawning new if we're ever to do a crossover with a podcast about Lower Deck, what's the one?
Below Deck.
Below Deck.
Bravo.
Below Deck. It's one of the producer Ilana's favorite shows. I absorb it. I'm not a big reality TV guy. There's lots to talk about that, but not right now. And anyways, so I absorb a little bit of this, and the recent stuff she's been watching has featured a woman who always puts her situation with her boyfriend above her job. It's like not the only thing that's wrong, but it's like she overslept because she was up all night talking to him on the phone and didn't do work. And then she's kind of, when they find, anyways, I don't know if that's fruitful or not, but it just struck me that you don't often see, and it is in real life, it doesn't work. It doesn't work to be like, I'm having problems with my boyfriend is not something you can bring to the, it's more of the sense that maybe the writers aren't adults in some ways.
In all of the ways. Because it reminds me of how I saw someone, I think I told you this, someone speak who had written for The Office, who acknowledged that at one point they had run out of ideas in the room certain seasons in, because they realized that none of them had ever worked in traditional offices. And it is exactly that. Because you have people writing about the, people working in an advertising office. And I'm very curious if there was anyone there who had actually worked in an advertising office.
So that's a thing where we want to do some research, because it does strike me that at some point that, like the way there's like David E. Kelly was a lawyer and became terrible. But I feel like ad man to screenwriter of some stripe that there was kind of a turnstile there. So we should check, but just it's not just the world of advertising. It's just like things in life.
Yes, it's very like what is a reasonable way for a situation to get resolved that actually happens IRL, that people actually do, versus like, we got a real story problem, we gotta figure out how to get so and so to here.
I mean, if I were to want to write a story in which the main problem is the wife is sad because the husband can't remember the first time he knew he was in love with her, I guess a satisfying conclusion might be for him to give some kind of bogus monologue about how he loves her every minute of every day.
I mean, that's like, I love you infinity. Like, boom, mic drop. Literal Mike Mancini drop. Oh yeah, let's get into these two. As lame as their storyline is, it does have ripples. It's entangled with, in almost a quantum sense, with what we see happen to their relationship, what we see happen to Michael later on. I just want to start it with producer Ilana's brilliant observation. So the story for Jane, what creates this whole problem is she had a dream remembering the first time they met, which also happened to be the first time she knew she was in love with Michael. Yeah.
And the literal story of that is wild party something. Jane breaks heel. Michael sees this is his end and is like, I can fix that for you. And punchline, he just breaks the other heel, so now she's on level ground.
Again, rom-com description of
it's the meatiest cutiest. And yet, this is Michael breaking something and handing it to Jane and telling her it's fixed. That is a microcosm for certain things that are just fundamental to the terrible relationship.
It's so telling because she laughs and goes, ha 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 ha. And you know what? I believe it was Ms. Maya Angelou, I'm paraphrasing, who said,
great advice.
Believe people when they tell you who they are the first time. That is not the exact quote, but that is the sentiment. And here, Mr. Mancini,
pardon me,
Dr. Mancini, is revealing a truth about himself. This is what I love about this bonus section that we are doing here, is because we've seen the entire series, and presumably anybody watching has also seen the entire series. I love looking for themes and thinking about a character's entire trajectory.
Yes.
So if we are living in the Melrose Madness universe where we know about the existence of Jennifer Mancini, Mancini's younger sister.
I'm going to say it now, possibly my favorite character. It's right up there with Jake just for being handsome.
She's
We've
great.
got so much to look forward with Jennifer Mancini, but yes, from this vantage point,
Yes.
saying milquetoast pragmatic put upon Michael,
Yes, very Mr. wears glasses.
earnest, dreamy, flighty, romantically obsessed Jane,
Yes.
the fashion
Designer.
worker. Yes. Like when you think where it's all going.
Oh, what I think is really fun is you started out the show with the two of them looking like the sort of happy couple. Like their biggest concern is, you don't remember when you fell in love with me, and then you did. I don't remember. I do remember. It's all the time.
Their
Love.
biggest concern is very little concern.
Very little concern. So what makes me fall in love with watching this and seeing them this way is knowing that in the Melrose universe timeline reality, at this point, Jane has already cheated on Michael on their wedding night.
On the eve of their nuptials.
On the eve of their nuptials. And then knowing what now, and then down the road we meet so Michael then, as anyone who's already seen the series knows, that Michael Mancini is famously the villain. Like, he's always had bad judgment. He's fucking everybody
Scheming.
over. He's a schemer.
He's a cheater.
So what's really fun about this is essentially Michael and Jane pretending to be a happy couple. Michael's sister Jennifer, when she arrives, she explains that Michael was kind of the black sheep of the family because Mancini's are schemers. Like,
He went
this is
straight.
and he didn't want to do what the family did, and he wanted to go off and be a doctor. But the thing is, he could not let go of his scheming ways. He's a man schemy. I'm very sorry. Michael
No, I'll
Mancini.
I'll take the puns all day long. Yeah.
So if you are, I was telling you earlier, I used to recommend to people who had never seen Melrose Place before. I almost wanted to say, come in when Sydney gets there, because you're gonna want to see the wedding dress in the pool. But I used to maybe think, oh, come in with Amanda. But now I'm realizing the fun of knowing how out of character this whole behavior is. It's so much fun because it actually does. And these two idiots end up together at the end, right? Or don't
No,
they?
not
They
they
don't?
nearly do, and like through too many turns of fate.
Oh, that's right.
Because
Rob
he ends up,
Estes'
as
character.
Ilana likes to point out, Michael essentially his final moment on the series is like it's good to be chief.
Oh my
Staff.
God, that's right. It's actually a love story between him and Wilshire Memorial.
Yeah.
And the chief residency position.
Nailed it in one, Lisa.
The one that is a thing that can be bequeathed to
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
But like, by the way, that's by that logic.
Yeah.
Like, if I am working somewhere and I die, and I've made sure in my will that my job goes to the person of my choosing, like, is that
Legally binding. Legally binding. It's in $5 world. So, from the end backwards, there's a retcon that kind of drives me crazy. I'm going to try to track it now as we go along, because I don't know if we've talked about this, but here we find out that on day 0, Melrose Place, our entree into the lives of these young adults living the young life in LA. 2 years since they met. 2 years.
Oh,
She
yes.
married in Melrose. I think they come from Chicago.
Chicago.
And this is something that does kind of drive me nuts, because what they're establishing here, if you just know a little bit about the arc of higher education, which for some
Oh, yeah,
reasons
you're
I
right.
do, for them to meet in college, and he's an MD, and she's like an art history major or something, or
So it's
fashion major,
undergrad too. We're talking
Yeah.
about here.
would have to be an MD dating an undergrad, which is like, there'd be a little bit of an age gap. Maybe it could be done non-creepily, but like, that's where we're at now, and where we end up. The way you thought that perhaps they end up together, it's because they set them on that course and then diverted very awkwardly. The last season
Oh my
plotting
God, yeah.
is not their best work.
All their romance.
And so, I'm doing the thing when I lost this.
You're talking about the time of the. So if
Yeah,
they meant 2
okay,
years
yes,
prior,
okay, thank
the
you for that.
timeline doesn't really.
Our
make
listeners
sense.
don't mind. That's one of those very real
That's what you're
moments.
here for.
Wayne loses track of things. It's very real for producer Ilana to live their daily life. Somebody loses track of things. They reconnect at a college reunion, and there's just they don't do things that way where an MD and an undergrad would be going to the same reunion.
No, it makes no sense.
So now they've been by season 7 or when it is. And that Jane and Michael have been together way longer because they would have had to have been undergrads together.
Yes.
And she worked in fashion to support desk jobs, who knows, they don't really talk about it, to support him through med school then and into his residency in LA, which is where we find him.
Yes, exactly.
Was that worthwhile? I don't know.
I think it is because we do go back so much to Jane and Michael's backstory because Sydney then comes into play because, by the way, Sydney and Michael know each other. She would have met him at the wedding at the absolute very least to her sister.
Yes.
So, and Rob Estes' character, the first time.
The original
buddy.
Sam Towler.
Is that what he is?
I think that's his name, something like that.
Yeah, so it's very fun to me to think these early episodes, like where people end up, because it is also very much them trying out the tone of the show to see if it's like, is it going to be more of a 30-something kind of show where it's like, maybe we're taking on some sort of like serious issues and there is some sexiness, but then by the time Jane and Michael, by the time he starts cheating on her and being really schemy, it's clear that this is going full soapy.
Full soap. Yeah, there are some. This comes before Ally McBeal, which Courtney Thorne-Smith, who plays Alison, was on. So sometimes to me it also echoes that when it's trying to be wackier.
Yes.
It has a little bit of that, like anything when she's in the car.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Another thing that producer Ilana urges me not to forget is that Michael has already been a stripper to pay for med school.
That is
unbeknownst to Jane, which again, I feel like when you get to the timeline, that's another one that's just illogic upon illogic.
Oh, that is really funny. Yes, he had. I can't remember if she knew or not.
I feel like she found out because that was the whole thing. And,
yeah, you're right.
And it's the one needle drop, not a live performance that survives through to what we can now watch as Melrose Place is Addicted to Love.
It's in there.
Is what that was his signature strip jam. That was his card as a stripper. And they had to play it once. And I almost feel like there's another scene where they wanted you to forget that it was Addicted to Love and they played some... So this is deep lore going forward to the future. But
I'll go further. I'll
take it deep.
Even deeper.
I love it.
They could have potentially changed the song, except that there's a line where Peter teases him and sings it. He goes, "Gonna have to face it, you're addicted to love." And if they had changed the song, that line makes no sense. So this is a case in which I think they actually had to pay for the song in order for it to make sense.
Well,
because it felt like paying for it.
Jack Wagner doesn't deserve to be hung out to dry like that.
No,
let's just say that.
Not.
Future forward Jake here.
Yes.
We see him and the oddly dressed gentleman behind the counter at the unemployment office, the bureaucrat.
The extras here are just amazing.
This episode is historic in the sense that we see Jake's first fight. He will resort to fisticuffs.
Like so quickly.
People die sometimes as a result.
Yes.
And he can win pretty much any fight. Again, not such a tough guy to push around this bureaucrat I decided he looked like the Rocky Horror Picture Show guy, like at his day job. What was your take on his? He had a lot going on.
He had a Ben Franklin energy to him. I thought with the way his hair was. It was very bold.
It's a bald man.
Yes, a bald man, but like
a lot of hair going below, and
very
comedic glasses that sort of undercut him as a character. And
Completely.
But not to linger on. We love tracking these details. Of course, Jake will become a bruiser. He will become what I like to deem Captain Melrose, always ready to run to the rescue of a lady in distress. And in this case, he is standing up for the lady ahead of him in line, who, like, I know they're trying to show how absurd the bureaucracy can be. This is not Brazil, though. It's not, they haven't reached, that level of subtlety. Satirical. So what's happening literally in that scene is that the check is physically in front of him. He somehow pulled this woman's file and has the check for her. But because of a requirement that they wait 2 weeks after change of address, she and her kid need to go home without money and wait for it to be mailed to the new address, something like that. And which is, I want to believe that's never been how things work, on the books, but could be.
Yeah, I'm not
those
sure.
Systems we could mention are ways of punishing people for
100%.
Essentially bad fortune, or the
existing
as not the class that is important in the world. Anyhow, he takes it upon himself to fight for this Latina woman.
Yes,
that's double. She's Latina.
She's
a Hispanic woman.
I believe. She's speaking with an accent. I mean, here's the thing. Here's my thing with Jake.
Please.
Jake reminds me of, do you remember during the Black Lives Matter protests when they were like, man, those white protesters on the front lines, they sure do love throwing those bricks quickly and causing a ruckus. And that's Jake's energy to me.
That's deep.
Jake is Captain Save-A-Ho when it is loud and everyone's looking at him, and he gets to make a big macho flex scene. Because the man, when he suspects for 2 seconds that someone might be cheating on him, he does not have a conversation with them. He does not wait for evidence to corroborate it. He immediately believes the man who told him this information, shuts the woman out, and is done. So Jake is Mr. That's my take on Jake. I have always.
It's a freshly coated white paint on his night costume that rubs off quite easily.
100%. I mean, this teenager bails you out of jail, and you make her feel bad about it.
Yeah.
I mean, senor, no.
And he turns the money into a thing, and then he comes back to string her along near the end.
That's my take on Jake. I'm just like,
I want to have a gentler view on him, but you were very persuasive about it.
But also, but again,
no, I know we can.
Melrose Place is a roar. We get to see our experience layered onto these, cartoon people.
Well, part of the joke is he's the devil of Melrose Place in the style of Matt Murdock is the devils of Hellcat, in my mind, in the future. Some of his acts of vigilantism.
Yes.
He goes out in the future in Alison's borrowed car one time where the asshole is flying to
Oh my god, I remember this.
Along with Billy to potentially confront carjackers on the street in a very problematic turn. Okay, so I want to take a gentler view though that there is kind of some sense of purity to it, but I think it's funny that we're seeing it already, and his willingness for a woman who, to your point, backs away. She wants none of this check snatching.
Yes.
Jake snatches the check that has to wait 2 weeks because the address has changed, even though it's physically right in front of them, and also gallantly sacrificing his spot in line.
For what? Now she's like, you're gonna get thrown out of here. I still gotta stand here, my white savior. Thanks for teaching me about getting checks.
He improves nothing in that situation. He's the villain. So a location where you're likely to find Jake is Shooters, and really briefly, I want to hang a big lantern on the owner of Shooters appearing in this episode. Former starlet, rather jaded, former actress. She's giving Sandy sort of a hard time about her headshots. All of this we know will come to nothing, interestingly enough.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But just here she is. Here's a piece of the puzzle to take with us is Melrose Place Day Zero, there is a former actress slash bartender who owns Shooters.
Yes. Who I could even see that maybe they had, because this is early on in the series, they may have thought this character could potentially be someone who interacts with Sandy because Sandy does work there, maybe. And so that might have been a thing where there were no legs on that storyline or whatever, and then it didn't go anywhere. But it is funny because I have this weird memory, and I could be wrong, but I guess we'll get to it eventually. I feel like I remember who Jake bought Shooters from when he does buy it. I mean, I guess maybe it changed
wasn't
a couple
her,
of
though.
hands.
Yeah.
I have this weird memory. Maybe I'm remembering something wrong, but I thought it was this sort of oh no, that's who he sold Shooters to. Actually, I genuinely have no idea who Jake bought Shooters from.
And Shooters just is, we know this bar is going to figure in that in the sense that this Melrose Place does always need its peach pit.
Yes.
And I think there's sort of a passing of the torch from Shooters to Kyle's one day, and then
upstairs.
Upstairs.
I love Upstairs. I love how genuinely I did not know that the name of the restaurant was Kyle's until way too late. I remember seeing the neon sign and going, "Oh my God!" I kept thinking that it was Kyle's restaurant, Mozza.
Yeah, right.
Oh no, it's just Kyle's.
Yeah, and something, and I'm
Wendy's,
not
Kyle's.
I'm not normally like this, but something that really stuck in my craw that we will see is that I don't know if the word's kerning, but the way that apostrophe takes up an entire character space.
I am
always got on my tits.
It is aggressive, and punctuation does not need to be that prominent. The whole point of it,
it's just as subtle.
Of it is a contraction.
Or possessive in this case.
Possessive, yes.
Yeah, but
we should be bumping on it.
It's just the spice in the soup. Want to talk about Dr. Ruth appearing here. We already went through the whole singles, and I babbled about my own version of Melrose Place, it turns out, very literally. And so a funny thing to look ahead to is through Michael, we will get Kimberly. Through Kimberly, we will get many messages about mental health that do not play well in the current context and maybe shouldn't have at the time. But we will also see her become, in the midst of all of that, a radio show host, filling in for Dr. Joyce Brothers. So, and I feel like those are the two,
massive, yeah, they were
pop psychology, icons.
Well, I love going back to this theme that you were talking about of romantic comedies and things that were in the zeitgeist. Sleepless in Seattle starts off with him calling in to, is it Dr. Joyce Brothers? Oh no, it's a fake character. That's right. It's a fake.
It's the 555-1212 character.
100%. And so it's very, you're seeing all of these. I mean, for kids watching, it's really fun. It's I'm realizing I just sort of took it for granted that this is this is always how it is. There's always and then you realize, oh no, that was a trend. That was a weird trend where all of a sudden people were calling in. And now there's different versions of that. There's podcasts and stuff.
Well, and in Southern California, certainly for a long time, there was the K-Rock Dr. Drapinski. And
oh gosh, yes,
all the whole thing in this same tradition of sort of call-in pop psychology sort of things. It's I guess it's a snapshot of the time that those things were kind of coming to the fore.
Yes,
but obviously not. We weren't getting it right, certainly.
Oh my God, Frasier. Frasier was a whole series about there's this. It's really interesting, the way mental health is treated on the show is just so bananas. But also it is very representative of how ill-informed, the general public and writers' rooms were, and people at the time.
I mean, in the future there will be people taking their own lives treated just really wrongly, and we'll have to talk about how to talk about that at the time. But even just
Michael is such an asshole to Jennifer after Craig dies. He's basically That guy was, what did he say? Anyone who takes their own life is
real meat.
is like a chicken head.
Chicken head.
A chicken head or something.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
Yeah,
it's a
that
real
one
chicken
is.
head.
I think that's a future quotation that we'll have to
That's a new t-shirt.
linger
That needs to
upon.
be.
Yeah, that too.
But yeah, that's Dr. Ruth. I mean, this is episode 2.
Yeah. They were swinging for the fences.
They really okay.
They're planting a seed that one day maybe Charles Nelson Riley might appear as himself, or probably more likely as Charles Nelson Riley. There's a difference in my mind. Are you playing the persona?
Exactly.
Or are you playing yourself? Right?
Exactly.
And we've
Like-
already got Dr. Ruth in the
Like
house.
when John Cicada
Oh,
comes on and
man.
he's just John
Yeah.
Cicada.
Or Sean Lennon
Oh, that's
appears on stage to serenade,
Right. It's so
and
great.
the upstairs bar takes a big left turn in terms of its demographic and goals. And
They
so-
went from being a jazz club
Yeah.
to a rock and roll club to whatever Eve was singing. Power ballads with Bonnie Raitt.
and occasionally very pointed
Instrumentals.
messages to the men you love.
Oh my god. Yes.
But and I think another thing that maybe we'll have to form a hypothesis about is this LA Seattle bipole.
Oh,
Right?
yes.
Because
I do
there
like
is, you've got Melrose Place, you've got singles, you've got Melrose Place that features, we find out later, Jake, a man from Seattle who loves wearing flannel. We know that this season we will meet Keith, who near for the briefest time possible under the circumstances draws Alison out of Melrose Place and off to live with him in Seattle.
that. And then gets dumped in the most ruthless way possible when she simply does not come back. He left his wife. He moved to Seattle. She quit her job. She gave up her apartment. This is a lady who just cannot understand the havoc that she wreaks in people's lives.
Poor judgment, and yes, little thought for the consequences for
I
others.
love it. Then she gets shipped off to Hong Kong, so there you have it.
She always comes back until she doesn't. I feel good about what's happened here today, and I think that was a nice spoilerific look at some of the 4 ripples.
I think so. It's really fun to like be in these early episodes with as many viewings under my belt as I have, because it's strange how thematically things really do, carry through in a way. Like the journey with Mr. Michael Mancini.
Yeah. And only constant cast member. So goes the show in a way.
He really is our North Star.
Listeners, you are our North Star, because without you, we are. What was the thing you say about going outside and screaming?
Oh yes. Without you, we really just would be standing out on the front lawn,
Yeah.
screaming this into the void.
So thanks for giving this MP3 file a reason to exist. Thanks to our producers, Ilana and Chris. Thanks to you, Lisa. This is just a delight.
Oh, thanks to you too, Wayne.
Maybe a refill on the coffee?
Yes, please.
You're right. This is madness.